Topher Chambers is an author, screenwriter, director, producer, podcast host, paranormal enthusiast, and archaeologist who's on the line here. How are you today?
Not too bad.
Great. Now, your new film, which you've written and directed and been involved with it in other ways too, is called The Black Book, and it's basically about a collector of rare curiosities finds himself with the collector piece to die for. So, without giving anything away and spoiling it, just sort of take it from there.
Well, it's just basically, it's based on the book of the same name. So the idea is that there's this book that has been floating around throughout history that spells bad news for whoever picks it up.
Yeah.
This is just one of the lives that the book has touched.
Yeah, and the film is sort of told in a way where you see a guy going into a shop and buying the book, and then you actually see each of the stories in the book acted out, don't you?
Yes. It's you come to find out that like the different stories are from different time periods and all of this other stuff, and it leads into questions that are answered at the very last, to find out who the last person to read the book was.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have different stories in a film, because sometimes if somebody doesn't like one story, they've still got the next one to look forward to, you know?
Yes, and it was actually had taken us 7 years to finish the movie, because we shot each individual section, like we shot 2 sections a year.
That's interesting. There was one story in the film where they'd done a bit and then it was 5 years later. Did you use the same actors for that part and maybe film it literally 5 years later?
No. We got it to work though.
So taking so long to make a film, did you have to have a lot of motivation to do that? Because maybe if something's taken a while, they might decide to give up.
Well, we were doing other projects at the same time as we were doing this. It's just we had a set budget, and our investors were releasing money at a certain, at a time instead of all at once. So we had to do what we had to do. But every time we'd finish one, we'd get it all done and produced and packaged, ready to go to put into the project. We would start working and start, like we flew down to Tampa, we flew down to Lafayette, Louisiana, and actually shot in one of the small towns down around there in the bayou for one of them. So it was doing it stretched out. While it felt like it took forever, and quite literally by the time I was done with the movie, with editing and all this stuff, I'd seen it so many times I'd never wanted to see it again. But it got to, it is it's pretty cool to see where we reached and who we reached with it.
And not only did you write and direct this film, you had a few other roles in it as well. Maybe this is what an auteur is, isn't it? Where the director does more than just direct.
Well, see, with this one, I wrote the book, and I got a few of my friends with me. I wrote parts of the movie and let them write their scripts that were based on their stories, and then I directed most of them. Let somebody else direct the ones that were written by other people, and then now we have a comic that I wrote the story for the comic. That's finishing up being ready to print. So like, and then in the movie, I played the moving man and a couple other things in the thing, like little hidden Easter eggs for me, being able to jump on the other side of the camera and do little odds and ends.
Which act was the moving man again?
That was the very end.
Oh,
I was the last person you see right before Ari, the guy who played the kid jumping out of the water in the very first Jason. I hand him the book, a box of books, and he picks up the book and puts it back on the shelf.
Ah, right. I see. Yeah. Maybe a lot of people would miss that because it's right in the very end. So who is in the film? Who are your favorite actors in it? Or is there any specific talent that maybe we should be looking out for that could be famous one day?
In the section, right off the bat, it's Ari Lehmann is the plays the bookseller. And like I said, he's the back in the day, he was the kid in heavy makeup that jumped out of the water at the end of Friday the 13th. And he's got tons and tons of roles and tons of stuff he's did in the horror genre, and him and his band, the First Jasons. So it was really neat to work with him right outside Chicago. We went up there and filmed. And I think in the section, Giving Up the Ghost, we worked with an Emmy Award winner. He literally won an Emmy like right after we got done filming for his Nickelodeon show for children's education. Emmanuel Carter. He's an excellent actor. He's an excellent person, just brings a really unique energy to the set. Dominic Wilkins and all of those guys who worked on that section were amazing to work with. It was a really fun shoot to sit back and just let them do their craft and know that only the slightest bit of direction was really needed because they knew those characters from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. Emmanuel Carter was great, and they were all great, really. And what actually made you want to make your book into a film?
Well, I was looking at bringing some of the stories in, and because I've done a lot of short films leading up to this, and it was an idea of like, okay, we want to move into the next section, but I also want to bring these stories. I think that they would be interesting to bring to the screen. And so it started with me looking at like the stories that I had in the book. I was like, the Odd Old Book literally was the basis for, which is like one of the first stories in the book, was the basis for like the whole concept of the book about, a book that travels around. Like I'm literally holding the inspiration piece in my hands right now. My uncle passed away when I was younger and gave me his enormous collection of books. And I'm talking about like 7,000-8,000 books.
Whoa.
And the only one in it that really, there's a lot of, old pulp, The Shadow, and all of these other really fun books, but there was this one book called Our Little Town of Sheridan, and in volume 1, you open it up and it's completely blank. There's nothing in it, and that prompted me to write this story about a guy whose uncle passed and hands him this book, and then he finds out there's this dark secret to the book and ends up going missing.
Yeah. And
that literally was the genesis for the movie. Like I took that concept, I took that story and added to the mythos, so to speak. Yeah. And that's what we do with every incarnation, the comic book and all that stuff. We add more stories, we add more interest in new things to the mythos.
Yeah. And you mentioned that some other people had either written or co-written different parts of the movie. So was that also the case with the book, or were these sort of new scenes for the movie?
The book, I started writing the book a long time ago, and when it came about, we had most of it written before we started making the stuff into a movie, but we ended up running out of. I wanted to get it to press, and I had friends of mine who were writers, and they were bugging me saying, "Hey, we would love to write, something, and to join this." So I let those, and then I contacted a couple others who I thought would be interested, and we just kind of came together, and I think I wrote 70% of the book, and probably 75% of the movie. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less, but I wrote a good chunk of the movie.
Yeah. And the movie is genuinely thrilling in parts as well. Is that down to your writing or your direction, or?
It'd have to be both. Because our budget for this movie was not very high, but it doesn't look like it wasn't very high. It's just basically because we were able to make really good deals and stretch it out over 6 years.
Yeah.
But It was a lot of the both, and a lot of picking the right people to be in those roles.
Yeah. And the budget is a few £1,000. If you've never made a movie before, it might sound like a lot, but actually, money can be spent quite quickly, can't it? When you don't realize how much actors are and how much things are that you need.
Oh, yeah. Like, for example, the one we're in pre-production now for, we are already matching almost half the budget of the entire movie on just the first part of it that we're filming.
Yeah. And do you make any profit from the movie? Because it's on Amazon Prime as a part of the subscription, so nobody's really paying for it. I think you can buy it if you're not subscribed or whatever, but are there ways you get royalties and things like that?
Well, our distributor, Indie Rights, are really, really great people. They have gone out of their way to be really supportive. They give us, our numbers whenever we inquire. They have shown me like we get paid based on views, or how the length of views. Like, so if you watch for an hour, we get credited an hour. If you watch for 10 minutes and turn it off, we still get credited for the 10 minutes. Yeah. And it tends to be something in the neighborhood of like, maybe, at least it used to be 6 cents per hour watched. I don't know what it is now. But that Tubi is an ad-supported. We are on Tubi, so that is an ad-supported thing. We get a percentage of the ad revenue. And then YouTube Movies is a rent or buy, and so is the Google Play Store. So, I mean, those are all of the different places. And Indie Rights has been telling me that they have several more locations in the works for us. They're just inking the deals. We literally just came out in October. Yeah. So they're still inking deals and getting us on different platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think was your favorite part of making it?
Just meeting everybody, because we didn't use the same people for any it was 7, including the rapper. It was 7 movies, short films that never used the same people. So we got to work with a lot of people that I'd never worked with before, and fell in love with and I've started coming up with ideas for like, I could totally put you in something like this, and because it was an amazing time just to working with some of these people.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because I think a lot of people forget that even though 2 people are in the same film, they might have never met each other.
Right. There's several since we did them. Like I think The Giving Up the Ghost was done 2 years after Date Night.
Wow.
And so none of those people who worked on the very first black and white one never actually got to be on set with the people who were doing the other, even though it was shot like 20 minutes away from where they were shot. It was a space of a couple years that,
Yeah. And if I remember rightly, Date Night was in black and white. I like that detail.
Yeah, it was a 1950s film. We felt like it would be, I assistant directed that one to give my producer partner a chance to direct. So Don Becker got to be able to actually direct that one and get his hands involved in more than just signing checks and making phone calls, telling people where to be at certain times. He actually got to be on set with us and get into the filmmaking side of things, and he really enjoyed that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're working on this next film, and is there anything else that's coming up?
We got the comic book, which is, and basically the book has moved on to another person, and this time it happens to be an innocent young girl who's in a bad position. Yeah. And she's trying to use the book as an escape and doesn't understand what the book is. So that's going to be an interesting way to look at, because the book, the mythology we've created for it is it gives you what you deserve. Yeah. So most of the people that we've seen deal with the book have been bad people in a way or two. This is an innocent girl. So what does the book do with an innocent soul? But we also have another book coming out, Letters from Marshalltown, that should be out within the next month or so. And then we're also in pre-production, like I said, for what's tentatively called right now Night Talkers. And we're in talks with some named actors in the horror genre to participate in that.
That sounds fun. Well, just remind us of all the places that we're able to find the film, The Black Book.
Amazon.com. You can find us on Tubi. You can find us on YouTube Movies. You can find us on Google Play. You can find the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And pretty soon you'll be able to find the comic book on theblackbookcomic.com.
Great. Well, many thanks for coming on today. It's been great having you on the show.
Well, thank you.